It is a great album. I just don't feel like it's his best album. And based off that, it sure can't be your last. Welcome to the Hip Hop Report. My name is Rambo Hustle, and today we will be discussing the new album from J. Cole, The Fallout. Now, this album is supposed to be his last album. I don't believe that, but I guess we'll see. Now, overall, I do like the album. Like I've said before on TikTok and other social media platforms, I think J. Cole is an amazing rapper. I think he does great with production. And I think overall, he's probably the last artist that we actually saw under Roc Nation, or any label for that matter, actually benefit from artist development. Even though they never really got his image right, they never hired a stylist for him. That's why he dresses like this. And to this day, he just never really got his image together to a point that you felt like, ooh, that's a superstar, right? So unfortunately, J. Cole is just, I don't know if he's better than Wale, but he suffers from what I call the Wale effect. The Wale effect is essentially something that says, I have the talent, but I don't carry it well. Now, with that being said, I do think this album, when I first looked at it, I said 24 songs from J. Cole. No offense. No one needs 24 songs from J. Cole. For this to be your last album, if you think about Jay-Z's last album, the Black Album, when that came out and you were like, okay, this is Jay-Z's last offering as a lyricist, as a musician, as a rapper, you knew you were in for something special. And sure enough, the Black Album to this day stands as maybe one of his most dynamic and powerful presentations of music and sonic diversity that we've ever got from Jay-Z. I mean, I would compare it to maybe Blueprint 1 or The Dynasty, where, I don't feel like this is one of J. Cole's best projects. I think the two disc concept is great after 2 years of being absent, but it's not great if this is supposed to be the last time we hear from you. He handles about half the production on the full project. I think J. Cole makes good production. I think he's a professional producer also by trade, but mainly because he produces for himself. I don't necessarily feel like J. Cole has amazing production that shines on any artist, because if that was the case, he would be producing for more artists, right? So for me, I think a big issue for Cole is the fact that he insists in taking on things that he doesn't necessarily need to take on. You can just be a rapper. You can just be an artist. You can just tell your story and then bring in features and pieces to the puzzle that elevate the production and the experience for the listener, for the fan, for the consumer. And I just think he refuses to do that because he's so gung-ho about showcasing that, hey, I did this myself. This was my project. This is me. This is all me. And I think his albums consistently and historically suffer because of this. Now, he also suffers from having to stand on the fence. One of the biggest topics going into this project was the idea that the big beef between Kendrick and Drake, which he was a part of initially, he bowed out. He said, I don't want no part of this. And personally, I think he was just riding the fence. He wanted to secure the Boy Wonder production. He wanted to secure the Burna Boy feature, which is one of the best records on the record, even though the best part on that record is the spoken word piece at the end of it. But I do feel like J. Cole, unfortunately, when you avoid friction, you end up just having a bland product. And I do feel like that's the downfall of this project. It starts off with what I'm assuming, because he also released it with the video, was his hook. When you create social media content, you have to have a hook. That's what they tell you. And to me, that was his hook. That was like, hey, look at this gritty street trap oriented record that doesn't sound like anything that I really normally do. And that's how we're coming out. The problem is, after track 2 on the first disc, we have another 22 records that never really revisit that. You have the P.D. Pablo feature, which I do feel like was kind of like, I don't know, kind of a token feature. Like, oh, it's my last project. Let's feature, the one biggest artist out of my state and we might as well just do it now because, it's my last project and let's just throw him in there. He complained about JID not being a bigger artist and that he should get more notoriety. Put him on the album. He could have easily done the record. I'll tell you what right now which record it was because I don't remember all the names offhand. But Man Up Above, that's easy. You could easily have him do that hook and do your verses, and boom, JID automatically gets a great look on your album. I mean, at the end of the day, if you want your label to be successful, if you want to be successful outside of just being an artist, you have to put your artist on your album. Like it seems like such an obvious thing that it baffles me when artists don't do that. I mean, look at Drake. It literally took for him to have nobody to be able to feature on his projects for him to actually put Party Next Door on. And then he still rolled out his single with a video that didn't even, like you chose a single that didn't even feature the guy you're collaborating on the project with. That's insane. With that being said, let's review some of the records because I do think there's some great records here. I'm not trying to downplay the project in itself, but we have to be honest about what we're getting. And I don't think this is J. Cole's last project because how could it be? He's going to go back and listen to this in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months from now and go, I can't go out like that. Now, like I said, he does handle at least half of the production of this project. Intro 29, he handles Safety, Poor Thing, which to me is one of the best records on the project with the Boosie reference sample. Legacy, which starts off strong, but then it just kind of flattens out into the traditional J. Cole sound that is just not very exciting and just not very, I don't know. It's like I'm listening to all of his albums from before again. He produced Who the Fuck Is You, as well as Bombs in the Ville and Hit the Gas. And actually there is an interesting line in that where he says, this is what rappers do when they can't find a new sound. I personally feel like he was talking to himself because who else would he be talking to when what we're listening to is exactly the same sound that he's had since probably after his first project when the label was like, this is what we need to roll out. And, again, that's what I do feel like a label can't provide. A lot of artists want to have complete creative control, but a lot of times that ends up in being too risky or not risky enough. Some of my favorite records from the first disc, like I said, Poor Thing with the Boosie reference sample, drum and bass, Lonely at the Top, and I do feel like The Let Out is maybe the most sonically original record on this entire project. I love that particular record, and I wish that he would take those risks and then see the value in those records and then revisit them later, so we don't have a bland, I don't want to call it unseasoned because it's definitely seasoned, but whenever you're talking about J. Cole, there's a reason that he wears basketball shorts and hoodies because his music sounds like basketball shorts and hoodies, literally. Now on the second disc, I love the 39 intro with the Outkast reference vibes. The Villist, another example of somewhere where you could easily take not just that reference Outkast, which is what 39 intro had, but you have Erykah Badu on the record. You don't have to sing this hook. You can let Erykah Badu sing that hook, and I'll be honest with you, it would be better. It would be better if we got a break from your delivery, from your voice and your raps. Not because they're not good, just because you're giving us 24 records of the same thing. So for me, if I have Erykah Badu on a record, I want to give her as much light as possible because I may never do another record with this legendary singer, and I want her to shine. So for me, having Erykah Badu on your record and having her just doing background vocals is strictly a thing where he just wants to do as much as possible. But to me, that isn't a winning formula. Now, I Love Her Again, another reference. He finally gets some production from Kendrick's camp, which honestly, he should be doing a lot more of that because him and Kendrick have the same context, the same subject matter, the same soundscape. I mean, obviously Kendrick's production is light years ahead of J. Cole's, but again, that's because Kendrick doesn't worry about producing. Kendrick is worried about his lyrics and his context and his deliveries being as original and creative and as dynamic as possible, where J. Cole's like, oh, I'm gonna get on this track and I'm gonna rap in my style and my fans are gonna love it. Tay Beast is a TDE producer from day one. As much as I love seeing that, I do feel like at this point, doing the Pac and Biggie concept record, I know a lot of people have been talking about that. It's been a huge talking point. But to be honest with you, to me, it falls short. I feel like Kendrick has already leaned so much into the Tupac reference points. And it's like, bro, you're not from New York and you're not from LA. You have no real direct connection to this thing besides just trying to, you know, portray this thing. And it's like, I don't know. I guess it's weird because I'm saying I want him to do original things, but then I'm saying that I don't really particularly like this one. And I just don't. I just didn't like it. I didn't feel like it didn't feel cinematic. It didn't feel forced, but it felt bland. It just didn't feel dynamic enough for me to say, yeah, this is fire. I think the second disc ends well with Quick Stop and The Whole World Is a Bill and Ocean Way. But again, overall, I think, unfortunately, J. Cole is trying to release music and speak because he hasn't really released a project in so long. But sometimes doing things because we feel we have to doesn't mean that we're doing them correctly. And I think that's where he kind of drops the ball. And also, you know, the riding the fence thing, I don't think that really serves him at all. Start prepping a new album because this is not it. And stop falling for the same thing that Drake did, where he thought that everyone was friends with him because he did features. You know, at the end of the day, like, he dropped 2 records the same day you dropped an album, and I don't think that was by coincidence. He just knew that you just weren't really on the same page in regards to what you wanted to do. And at the end of the day, that hurts you because, you know, you're playing nice with someone that actually doesn't care. All he's trying to do is take the light from your moment. And we saw that this morning when those other 2 records leaked. Now, no one's talking about those records because who cares? But at the end of the day, you have to protect your own legacy and your own sound, and you don't do that by riding the fence. And if you're gonna actually pick a side, then you know what side that should be. With that being said, Rambo Hustle for the Hip Hop Report. Make sure you go stream and listen to The Fallout. It is a great album. I just don't feel like it's his best album, and based off that, it sure can't be your last.
All hustle, yeah.
All hustle is all hustle.